Log 1, T3, May 4th, 2015, 1300 hours. We have just arrived at the fob designated redacted. I am Lieutenant Colonel Samuel Arthur Blair, hereafter referred to as Colonel Sam. At this time we are unclear of the date. We are basing the day on the timestamp from the previous T2 logs. Information on T1 is sketchy at best, owing to only brief references in T2's logs. The chaplain Vernon W. Howell, hereafter referred to as Preacher, and Captain Amanda Carter, our resident physicist, skull jockey, and acting medic, hereafter referred to as TAP, are seeing to the remains of T2. There appear to be no survivors. However, 4 of the original teams are still unaccounted for. Enclosed in the redacted will be this log, and T2's log. It would appear that they were sent, however NARD didn't debrief us on any arriving, so I will assume they were lost in transmission. The last one is dated April 9th. There are, however, incomplete records of 2 more logs being sent. However, their records are scrubbed using protocol redacted, and so far we are unable to retrieve them. As is stated in these logs, we did lose 2 on arrival, and to the redacted room. However, the declaration by T2's CO, Major Redacted, that I broke my leg was inaccurate. It's sore but otherwise uninjured. Also, I am unclear why he referred to me as an airbear. Also, the declaration that only 3 of us would get through the traps on the way here was an error. The PTBs should have warned us, and any following incursions of the traps leading to this area, especially considering we are in a BFN zone. Aside from myself, Colonel Sam, Preacher, TAP, there is Major Jackson Briggs, hereafter referred to as Jax, and Lieutenant Seamus Aran, hereafter referred to as Irish Jim. We were the ones that made it through. We did lose redacted and redacted in the redacted, and it took us almost 2 days to get here. I have Jax and Irish Jim listing the beans and bullets. I should have a list by the end of this report, depending on how many or how few there are. As to the previous logs of the so-called pleasure room, we had no difficulty at all. In fact, it was a rather large change of pace. We simply walked across the room. Granted, the spatial distortions previously reported were not wholly inaccurate. It is, in appearance, 12 feet across. However, it took us an hour and a half to make the journey. At least none of our personnel got stuck in there. Once we got to the fob, redacted, and the redacted back up and running, we will check for the 2 points mentioned in T2's log and search for T1. I will be Oscar Mike for a moment, as Colonel Sam and Preacher are about to fill me in on the sit rep of the BIBs inside the wire. I have Jax and Irish checking the wire to see what we can do about defending the fob, as the bean and bullet count is extensive. Okay, so apparently the doctor known as McCoy in the logs wasn't sleeping, as is obvious. There appears to be some kind of discrepancy in the date of the logs, as the body next to the bean and bullet room looks to have been dead for less than 2 days. COD was not readily apparent, and TAP is hoping that I will let her do an autopsy. I had to tell her that it would have to wait until we were secure. As to the one identified as Sarah in the logs, well, it's unclear exactly if we found her. There is a bleach-blown skeleton minus a leg and part of a hip. Tapp says that the skeleton isn't human, and indeed female more than likely. But as it stands, it looks as if it has been left out in the sun for 100 years in the sandbox. Although the sleeping position would be accurate, the skeleton was found in the fetal position. As to this supposed sphere room, it is located within the fob, as is the previously mentioned beans and bullet room. Also to note, within the fob is a roughly 2.5-story hardened building. There was a rope and gear in place, so I took a look, and there is indeed a stagnant pool on the roof mentioned in the previous logs. However, I think I'd rather live off hardtack than try and drink it. So far, the vines and vague descriptions of wildlife have yet to be seen in evidence. But to report on the sphere room, it is approximately a 1-story structure with a 1-foot square, 5-foot tall pillar in the middle, atop which this supposed sphere is placed. It is about the size of my niece's beach ball, but it is smooth and affixed to the pillar, so any sort of reading purportedly done appears to be nil. The two scientists described as Bright and Jones in the logs were indeed curled together in the room. Preacher won't go in there. He says it's like our last mission in Redacted. I also have to admit I have a very sick feeling entering the room. I think the main reason is that the two bodies, or should I say, body and a half, are weird. Tapp isn't exactly sure what the hell happened in there, and again, she wants to do an autopsy. The bodies appear somehow melded. The upper torso of one is sticking out of the back of the other. The creepiest thing is you can see the top of his head on the other fellow's right shoulder. I really don't know what the hell is going on here, but you guys sure sent us into a fustercluck. As to Major Redacted, I'm going to say he's Section 8 and somewhere outside the wire. Irish and Jax walked about half a click on my order.